The stars looked different this far from Earth. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Horizon Dawn and watched them through the main viewing screen. He had been in space for 3 months now, and sometimes he still couldn't believe humanity had made it this far. Just 50 years ago, humans were still dreaming about reaching Mars. Now they were exploring the edge of the Kepler belt, farther than any human had ever traveled. All systems running smooth. "Captain," Danny Carter said from the first officer's station. Danny was young, maybe too young for the position, but he was smart and reliable. Jake trusted him with his life. The Horizon Dawn wasn't a military ship. It was an explorer, built to map new systems and search for resources humanity could use. The crew of 43 people were scientists, engineers, and dreamers. They had been out here for months, scanning asteroids and analyzing cosmic dust. It was important work, but it could be boring. That morning started like any other. Linda Hayes sat at her communications station, monitoring the usual background noise of space. Radio waves from distant stars, cosmic radiation, the occasional ping from Earth checking in on them. She was drinking coffee from a sealed cup and thinking about the message she would send to her daughter back home when something made her stop. "Captain," Linda said, her voice uncertain. "I'm picking up something strange." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "A signal. It's not from Earth and it's not natural." Linda's fingers moved across her controls, trying to clean up the static. "It's weak, but it's definitely artificial. Someone made this, the bridge went quiet." Everyone knew what this meant. In all of humanity's years in space, they had never found proof of alien life. There were theories, hopes, and endless debates, but no proof. Until maybe now. "Can you tell where it's coming from?" Jake asked. Linda nodded, her face pale with excitement or fear or both. "About 3 hours away at full speed. Captain, the signal is repeating. The same pattern over and over." Jake listened to the pattern Linda played through the speakers. Even without understanding the language or the technology, he knew what he was hearing. It was a rhythm that every species in the universe would probably understand. A heartbeat getting slower, a cry for help getting weaker. Someone was dying out there. "Plot an intercept course," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." Danny looked up from his station. "Sir, first contact protocols say we should report this to Earth Command first. Wait for instructions." Jake understood the rules. He had helped write some of them. But he also understood that following those rules meant waiting days or weeks for Earth to respond. Whoever was sending that signal didn't have days or weeks. "By the time we get authorization, they'll be dead," Jake said. "We're going. Send a message to Earth and tell them what we're doing, but we're not waiting for permission to save a life." The Horizon Dawn turned and accelerated. The crew moved with purpose, everyone understanding they were about to make history. Amy Wells, the chief engineer, made sure the engines were running at peak performance. Dr. Peter Lawson prepared the medical bay for a patient whose biology they couldn't even imagine. Gary Hunt, the security chief, briefed his team on first contact scenarios. 3 hours felt like 3 years. Jake stood on the bridge watching the scanner as they got closer to the signal source. What would they find? A space station? A planet? Another ship? "Visual contact," Danny announced. Putting it on screen now. The image that appeared made everyone gasp. It was a ship, but unlike anything humans had ever built. The vessel was maybe 300 meters long, shaped like a teardrop made of crystal or glass. Lights pulsed inside it, flowing through the structure like blood through veins. But those lights were flickering, fading, dying. The beautiful ship was covered in damage. Scorch marks blackened its surface. Atmosphere vented from dozens of holes in the hull. Debris floated around it, pieces of the same crystalline material, glittering in the starlight like tears. "Oh my God," Amy whispered. "The technology to build something like that must be centuries beyond ours. Maybe thousands of years beyond." Jake forced himself to focus. The ship was amazing, but someone inside needed help. "Life signs?" Danny worked his scanner, trying to make sense of readings designed for human biology. "I'm detecting something. The scanner can't identify what it is, but there's definitely life aboard that ship. Faint signatures, maybe 4 or 5 of them. Can we dock with it?" Jake asked Amy. The engineer studied the alien ship's design. "I don't think so. Their docking systems are completely different from ours. But we can attach repair drones to stabilize those hull breaches, stop the atmosphere loss, and we can send a boarding party across in suits." Jake made his decision. He had known what it would be from the moment they detected the signal. Do it. Get those breaches sealed. Danny, you have the bridge. Amy, Peter, Gary, you're with me. We're going over there. The crew moved fast. Within 30 minutes, repair drones were launching from the Horizon Dawn, crossing to the alien ship and beginning emergency hull patches. The drones weren't designed for this kind of work, and the alien materials didn't respond the way human materials would. But Amy guided them with skill. Slowly, the atmosphere leak stopped. Jake and his team suited up in the airlock. The suits were designed for emergency repairs in space, with enough air for 6 hours and basic tools built into the arms. They weren't designed for first contact with an alien species, but they would have to do. Remember, Jake said as they prepared to cross the gap between ships, we don't know what we're going to find over there. Stay together, stay calm, and don't touch anything unless Amy says it's safe. Gary checked his weapon, a simple stunner meant for emergencies. And if whatever's over there is hostile? Then we defend ourselves, Jake said. But we're here to help, not fight. Everyone clear? They all nodded. Jake opened the airlock and they stepped out into space. The journey across to the alien ship was short but felt eternal. Jake kept his eyes on the crystalline hull growing larger in front of them. Up close he could see details. Patterns in the material that might be writing or decoration. Sections that pulsed with different colors. It was beautiful and terrifying. Amy found an opening, a tear in the hull that their drones had sealed with emergency foam. She cut through the foam carefully, creating an entrance large enough for them to pass through. One by one, they entered the alien ship. The interior was like stepping into a dream. Everything curved and flowed in ways that didn't quite make sense to human eyes. The walls seemed to shift colors as they moved. Lights drifted through the air like fireflies. Even damaged and dying, the ship was more beautiful than anything Jake had ever seen. It was also a graveyard. Bodies lay in the corridors. Tall beings, maybe 8 feet high, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. They were dead, had been dead for hours probably. Whatever had attacked this ship had killed most of the crew. Life signs ahead, Gary said, checking his scanner. Weak, but definitely there. They moved forward carefully, deeper into the alien ship. The alien ship's corridors twisted in ways that made Jake's head hurt. Nothing was quite straight, and the floor seemed to curve upward even though his feet said it was flat. The lights that drifted through the air cast strange shadows that moved on their own. Gary kept his weapon ready, but Jake could see the wonder in his eyes behind the helmet visor. They found more bodies as they went deeper. Some looked like they had died from the damage to the ship, caught in explosive decompression or crushed by falling debris. Others had wounds that looked deliberate, like they had been fighting something. The shimmer of their skin had faded to a dull gray in death. Whatever happened here was violent, Gary said quietly. This was an attack, not an accident. Peter knelt beside one of the bodies, scanning it with his medical equipment. The readings made no sense, showing biology so different from human that the scanner couldn't even categorize it properly. 4 arms, 2 legs, what looks like 2 hearts based on the circulatory system. Their blood is blue, or was before they died. I'm seeing organs I can't even identify. Can you learn enough to help if we find survivors? Jake asked. Maybe, Peter said. The basic principles should be the same. They breathe, they have circulation, they need oxygen. I can work with that. Amy had stopped in front of what looked like a wall panel. Unlike the smooth curves of the rest of the ship, this section had markings on it, symbols that glowed faintly. She reached out carefully and touched one. The panel responded, lighting up with more symbols and what might have been a diagram of the ship. Amy studied it, her engineer's mind working through the alien logic. I think this is a ship directory. If I'm reading it right, the command center is ahead up this passage. They followed her guidance through the winding corridors. The life sign on Gary's scanner got stronger as they moved. Whoever was alive on this ship, they were close now. The command center was a large chamber at the heart of the ship. Stations were arranged in a circle around a central platform, each one glowing with alien symbols and displays. More bodies lay here, slumped over their controls or sprawled on the floor. But in the center, on the raised platform, something moved. She was smaller than the other aliens they had seen, maybe 6 feet tall instead of 8. Her 4 arms were wrapped around herself, and her breathing came in short, desperate gasps. The shimmer of her skin flickered like a candle about to go out. When she heard them enter, her eyes opened. Those eyes were large and golden with pupils that weren't quite round. They focused on the humans with an expression Jake couldn't read. Fear, maybe, or hope, or both. Easy, Jake said softly, even though he knew she couldn't understand him. We're here to help. Peter moved forward slowly, his medical scanner out. The alien's eyes followed him, but she didn't try to move away. She was too weak for that. Peter knelt beside her and began scanning, his face tight with concentration behind his helmet. Her respiratory system is failing, Peter said. I think the atmosphere in here is wrong for her. Too little oxygen, maybe, or the wrong mixture of gases. She's suffocating slowly. Can you help her? Jake asked. Peter looked at his scanner, then at the alien, then back at the scanner. I don't know. Everything about her biology is different. If I give her the wrong treatment, I could kill her. The alien made a sound, a series of musical notes that rose and fell. Her hand reached out, not toward Peter, but toward one of the command stations. Amy followed the gesture and moved to the station. I think she's trying to tell us something, Amy said. She studied the alien controls, trying to make sense of them. Patterns emerged slowly. This symbol probably meant power. That one might be activation. It was like learning a new language by guessing, but Amy was good at puzzles. She pressed a sequence of symbols and the station lit up. A hologram appeared in the air, showing what looked like a diagram of alien anatomy. The image rotated, highlighting different systems in different colors. It's a medical database, Peter said, excitement breaking through his worry. She's showing us how to help her. Working together, Amy and Peter began to understand. The alien species needed an atmosphere with 30% oxygen, compared to Earth's 21%. They needed certain trace elements in the air that humans didn't. The medical database showed treatments, procedures, medications. I can work with this, Peter said, but I need to get her to her own medical bay. The equipment there will be designed for her biology. Amy was already studying the ship directory again. Medical bay is 2 sections over, but the power readings show it's barely functioning. I need to get the ship's reactor back online first. How long will that take? Jake asked. I don't know. Maybe an hour if I'm lucky and can understand their systems. Maybe never if I can't. Jake looked at the dying alien. They didn't have an hour. Do what you can. Peter, stabilize her as best you can here. Gary, help me search for any other survivors. The team split up. Amy headed deeper into the ship, following power conduits toward what she hoped was the main reactor. Peter stayed with the alien, using the medical database to guide him through emergency procedures. Jake and Gary searched the rest of the command center and the surrounding sections. They found no more survivors. Whatever had attacked this ship had been thorough. The alien on the command platform was the only one left. Amy's voice crackled over the radio. I found the reactor. It's incredible. The technology is like nothing I've ever seen. They're using a power source I can't even identify, but the control systems are damaged. Give me some time. Time was something they didn't have much of. Jake returned to the command center and watched Peter work. The doctor had connected some of the alien medical equipment to his own supplies, creating a hybrid system that probably would have made the designers of both technologies horrified. But it was working. The alien's breathing was getting steadier. Talk to me, Peter, Jake said. She's stable for now. The medical database had instructions for an emergency respirator. I've got it running, feeding her the right atmosphere mix. But she needs more than this. She needs real treatment. An hour passed, then another. Amy worked miracles in the reactor room, connecting human repair tools to alien technology, following logic chains through systems she barely understood. Finally, her voice came through with triumph. Got it. Bringing primary power back online now. The ship hummed to life. Lights brightened throughout the command center. Systems that had been dark began to glow, and most importantly, the medical bay powered up. They carried the alien to the medical bay carefully. The room was full of equipment that looked more like art than medical devices. Curved surfaces, floating displays, instruments that seemed to move on their own. Peter set the alien down on what was clearly a medical bed and stepped back. The bed activated automatically, scanning her body and beginning treatment. Robotic arms moved with precision, administering medications and repairs. Peter watched in amazement as the alien medical system did in minutes what would have taken him hours or days. Unbelievable, he whispered. Their medical technology is centuries beyond ours. The alien's eyes opened again. This time they were clearer, more focused. She looked at the humans standing around her, these strange 2-armed creatures in bulky suits who had saved her life. Her mouth moved, making sounds that the humans couldn't understand. Amy was already working on that problem. She had found what looked like a communication system and was trying to connect it to their radios. I think I can set up a translation program. Their computer systems are damaged but still functional. If I can access their language database. It took another hour of work, but finally Amy made the connection. The aliens' words began to come through their helmet speakers, translated into English by software that was trying its best to bridge the gap between species. "You saved me," the alien said. Her voice was musical even through the translation. "Why would you do this?" Jake stepped forward and removed his helmet. It was a risk. The atmosphere in the ship might not be safe for humans, but he wanted her to see his face to understand they meant no harm. "Because someone needed help," Jake said simply. "That's reason enough." The alien stared at him with those golden eyes. "I am Vera. I am Quillian. My people are dead. All dead. I'm Jake Morrison. We're human from Earth. You're not alone anymore." Vera recovered slowly over the next 3 days. The alien medical equipment worked continuously, healing wounds and repairing damage that would have killed a human 10 times over. Peter stayed close, fascinated by the medical technology and worried about his patient. He had saved her life, but he didn't really understand how. Jake spent those 3 days learning everything he could about the Quillians and their ship. Amy worked with Vera's computer systems, slowly unlocking their secrets. The translation program got better with use, learning from Vera's speech patterns and the vast language database stored in the ship's memory. On the 3rd day, Vera was strong enough to talk properly. She sat up on the medical bed, all 4 arms moving with the natural grace of her species. Her skin had regained its shimmer, flowing with colors that seemed to reflect her emotions. Right now, those colors were dark and troubled. "You want to know what happened?" Vera said. It wasn't a question. "Only if you're ready to tell us," Jake replied. He sat across from her with Danny, Amy, Peter, and Gary gathered around. Linda was monitoring from the Horizon Dawn, listening through the communication link. Vera's shimmer rippled with something that might have been sadness. "I should start at the beginning. My people, the Quillians, have existed for over 10,000 of your years. We were explorers, scientists, philosophers. We spread across this part of the galaxy, learning and growing and helping younger species when we found them." "Were," Danny asked quietly. 3 of your years ago, we encountered the Devourers." Vera's shimmer went almost black. "They are not living beings, not anymore. They are machines, vast and ancient, created by a species whose name is lost to time. Their purpose is to preserve life by converting it into digital form. They believe they are saving the galaxy, one civilization at a time." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Converting? You mean they destroy civilizations?" "They consume them," Vera said. "They arrive in a system and begin the conversion process. Every living thing, every piece of technology, every scrap of culture and knowledge gets absorbed into their network. The Devourers grow stronger with each civilization they consume, and they never stop." "They cannot stop. It is their purpose." Amy leaned forward. "But you fought them. Your people must have had defenses." "We tried everything." Vera's 4 hands gestured in frustration. "We had weapons that could destroy stars, shields that could withstand supernovas. Technology developed over thousands of years. None of it mattered. The Devourers adapted to everything we threw at them. They learned from every battle, and slowly, system by system, they consumed the Quillian collective." "How many of your people were there?" Peter asked. "At our height, over 40 billion across hundreds of worlds." Vera's shimmer flickered. "Now there is only me." The silence that followed was heavy. Jake tried to imagine it. An entire civilization, ancient and advanced, wiped out completely. It was almost impossible to comprehend. "Why were you out here?" Gary asked. "Alone in a damaged ship?" "In our final years, we realized we could not win," Vera explained. "So we changed our mission. We sent out scout ships to find younger species, civilizations that the Devourers had not yet discovered. Our goal was to warn them, to give them time to prepare or flee." "That's what you were doing," Jake said. "You were coming to warn us." Vera nodded, a gesture she had learned from watching the humans. "I was assigned to this sector. I found evidence of your species, radio signals and primitive satellites. I was on my way to Earth when the Devourers found me. They must have been tracking my ship. There was a battle. My crew fought bravely, but we were outnumbered. The Devourers destroyed our weapons, crippled our engines. They were preparing to board us when I activated our emergency jump drive. You escaped, Amy said. Barely. The jump drive was damaged. It took us here to this empty place between stars. The Devourers did not follow, but the damage was done. My crew died from their injuries. The ship's systems failed. I thought I would die alone in the dark, the last of my people having failed in my mission. But we found you, Jake said. Vera's shimmer brightened slightly. Yes, you found me. Strange creatures from a species I came to warn. With technology barely capable of reaching your own moon just decades ago, you risked your lives to save mine. You didn't have to. You could have just studied my ship from a distance and left me to die, but you didn't. That's not who we are, Jake said firmly. I am learning that. Vera looked at each of them. But you must understand what you have saved. By rescuing me, you have placed yourselves in great danger. The Devourers are coming. They are always coming, and now I must deliver the warning I came to give. How long do we have? Danny asked. Vera consulted her internal chronometer, translating Quillian time to human measurements. The Devourers are currently consuming the last of Quillian space. They are thorough, harvesting every resource, every piece of technology. When they are finished, they will expand outward. Your Earth lies in their path. I estimate 20 to 30 of your years before they reach your solar system. 30 years, Gary said. That's not much time. It is more than most species get, Vera replied. The Devourers move slowly but inevitably, like a tide that cannot be stopped, only delayed. Jake stood up and paced, his mind racing. 30 years to prepare for an enemy that had destroyed a civilization. Thousands of years more advanced than humanity. It seemed impossible. But giving up wasn't an option. Tell us everything you know about them, Jake said. Their weaknesses, their tactics, everything. We need every advantage we can get. Vera's shimmer shifted to colors that might have meant surprise or hope. You intend to fight them? We intend to survive, Jake corrected. If that means fighting, we'll fight. If it means running, we'll run. But we won't just give up and die. Every species says that, Vera said softly. Every species fights. Every species loses, maybe, Amy interjected. But humanity has a pretty good track record of doing things that should be impossible. We're stubborn like that. Vera studied the humans for a long moment. Something in their determination reminded her of her own people in their early days. Before age and wisdom had taught them caution, these humans were young and foolish and brave in ways the Quillians had forgotten. Very well, Vera said. I will tell you everything I know. But you must understand, the knowledge alone may not be enough. It's a start, Jake said. Over the next hours, Vera shared the Quillians' accumulated knowledge of the Devourers. She showed them recordings of battles, analyses of Devourer technology, and maps of consumed systems. The humans watched in horror and fascination as civilizations fell, one after another, to the relentless machine intelligence. But Vera also shared something else. In their final decades, the Quillians had been working on a desperate plan. They had discovered that while the Devourers could not be defeated, they might be escaped. There were other galaxies, young galaxies beyond the Devourers' reach. The Quillians had developed technology to bridge the intergalactic void. You were planning to run, Danny said. We were planning to survive, Vera corrected, to preserve what we could and start again somewhere safe. But we ran out of time. The Devourers consumed our shipyards, our research stations, our homeworlds. This scout ship contains the last complete copy of our research. Everything we learned, everything we built, everything we hoped to become. It is all here in the ship's database. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same thought reflected in their eyes. This wasn't just about saving one alien anymore. This was about saving humanity, and maybe countless other species they hadn't even met yet. We need to get you and the ship back to Earth, Jake said. Our people need to see this. They need to know what's coming. Are you certain? Vera asked. Once you share this knowledge, your people will face the same choice mine did. Fight and die or flee and survive. It is not an easy burden to carry. We didn't come out here looking for easy, Jake replied. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Amy and her engineering team worked around the clock to keep Vera's ship stable enough to travel. The Quillian vessel wasn't designed to move under its own power anymore, not with the damage it had sustained. Instead, the Horizon Dawn towed it, pulling the crystalline ship through space like a tugboat with a prize beyond measure. Vera spent those weeks teaching the humans everything she could. She sat in the Horizon Dawn's small conference room, her forearms gesturing as she explained concepts that seemed like magic to human ears. Faster than light travel, energy shields, weapons that could crack planets, medical technology that could regrow entire organs. Jake recorded every session, knowing that Earth scientists would study these recordings for years. But more than the technology, he wanted to understand the Quillians themselves. What kind of people had they been? What had they valued? What had they dreamed about before the Devourers came? "We were not so different from you," Vera said one evening. The ship's lights were dimmed for night cycle, and most of the crew was sleeping. But Jake found it hard to sleep knowing what waited ahead. Young and curious and certain we could solve any problem given enough time. What changed? Jake asked. "Age," Vera said simply. "When a civilization lives for thousands of years, it becomes careful, conservative. We had so much to lose that we became afraid of risking anything. By the time the Devourers came, we had forgotten how to be brave. You were brave," Jake pointed out. "You were out here alone trying to warn species you'd never met." Vera's shimmer shifted to warm colors. "Perhaps, or perhaps I was simply the last fool in a civilization of the wise." Linda's voice interrupted from the communication station. "Captain, I'm getting a transmission from Earth Command. They want to talk to you immediately." Jake wasn't surprised. He had been sending daily reports back to Earth, detailing their discovery and what Vera had told them about the Devourers. The response time for messages was getting shorter as they got closer to home. Earth had been listening, and Earth had questions. The face that appeared on the communication screen was Admiral Kate Hughes, commander of Earth's small space fleet. She was in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Jake had trained under her years ago and respected her immensely. "Captain Morrison," Hughes said without preamble, "I've read your reports. All of them. Multiple times. Do you understand what you're telling us?" "Yes, ma'am. An alien species thousands of years old was completely destroyed by a machine intelligence that's heading our way. We have maybe 30 years to prepare." "And you believe this alien? This Vera?" Jake glanced at where Vera sat, listening to the conversation. "I've seen the evidence, Admiral. The recordings, the data, the technology. It's all real. And Vera has no reason to lie to us. She's the last of her people. All she wants is to make sure her warning reaches someone who can use it." Hughes was quiet for a moment. "The United Earth Council is in emergency session. They've been debating what to do since your first report arrived. Some want to prepare for war. Others want to focus on evacuation. If you think it's all an elaborate hoax or misunderstanding..." "It's not a hoax," Jake said firmly. "I believe you," Hughes replied. "But belief isn't enough. When you arrive, you and your crew will need to present your evidence to the Council. They'll want to meet Vera, see her ship, examine everything. Are you prepared for that?" "We are." "Good, because the fate of humanity might depend on how convincing you are." Hughes leaned forward. "Jake, I need you to understand something. What you're bringing back to Earth isn't just information. It's a choice. Once people know about the Devourers, once they understand the threat, everything changes. Our entire civilization will have to decide how to respond. That's a heavy burden." "I know, ma'am." "Do you?" "Because 30 years sounds like a long time, but it's not. It took us 50 years just to build the ship you're flying, to build a defense against something that destroyed the Quillians or to evacuate billions of people to another galaxy. We'll need to transform our entire civilization. We'll need unity like humanity has never achieved before." Jake understood what she wasn't saying. Humanity was good at many things, but unity wasn't one of them. Earth was still divided into nations, factions, corporations, and interest groups. Getting everyone to work together toward a single goal would be nearly impossible. "Then we better start trying," Jake said. The rest of the journey passed in a blur of preparation. Peter compiled medical data that would revolutionize human medicine. Amy created detailed analyses of Quillian technology, highlighting what humans might be able to replicate. Danny worked with Vera to create a comprehensive database of everything the Quillians knew about the Devourers. Gary took a different approach. He studied the recordings of battles between Quillians and Devourers, looking for tactical information. Weaknesses, patterns, anything that might help if fighting became necessary. They adapt quickly, Gary told Jake during one of their planning sessions. Every weapon the Quillians used, the Devourers found a counter for within days or weeks. But there's a lag, a window where new tactics work before the Devourers adjust. "So we'd need to constantly innovate," Jake said. Never use the same strategy twice. Exactly. Which is hard to do when you're fighting a networked intelligence that learns from every encounter. When Earth finally appeared on the viewing screen, Jake felt a mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. Relief at being home, fear of what came next, hope that humanity would rise to the challenge. The Horizon Dawn and Vera's ship were met by an escort of military vessels. Not as a threat, but as protection. Whatever Vera's ship contained was now the most valuable thing in human space. They were guided to a secure orbital facility, a military station that had been hastily cleared for their arrival. Jake stood at the airlock as station personnel came aboard. He recognized some faces, old colleagues and friends, but there were also politicians, scientists, military officers, all of them eager to see the alien and her ship. Admiral Hughes was the first through, and she went straight to Jake. "Good work, Captain. You and your crew may have just saved humanity." "We just answered a distress call," Jake replied. "Sometimes that's all it takes to change history." Hughes looked past him to where Vera was waiting. The Quillian had requested to meet Earth's leaders in person, to deliver her warning face to face as she had intended from the beginning. "I am ready," Vera said. Her translated voice calm despite the significance of the moment. They took a shuttle down to Earth, to the United Earth Council headquarters in Geneva. Jake had never been inside the building before. It was all glass and steel, built to represent humanity's unity, even though everyone knew that unity was more aspiration than reality. The council chamber was circular, with seats for representatives from every nation and major colony. Hundreds of people waited there, all of them watching as Jake, Vera, and Admiral Hughes entered. The room fell silent as they saw Vera, the first alien most of them had ever encountered. Vera walked to the center of the chamber. She moved with grace despite the Earth's gravity being different from what she was used to. Her shimmer reflected the lights of the chamber, creating patterns on the walls that were almost hypnotic. "People of Earth," Vera began, her translated voice carried through the chamber's speakers. "I bring you a warning from a dead civilization. I am the last of the Quillians, and I have traveled far to tell you that you are not alone in the universe. But I must also tell you that you are in terrible danger." For the next hour, Vera told them everything. She showed them recordings of her people's fall. She explained the nature of the Devourers and their inexorable advance. She presented the Quillians' research, their failed defenses, their desperate final plan to flee to another galaxy. The council listened in stunned silence. When Vera finished, the chamber erupted in noise. Questions, arguments, denial, fear. It was chaos, but it was the chaos of people trying to process the impossible. Helen Grant, the council president, called for order. She was a woman in her 50s, known for her steady leadership during crises, but even she looked shaken. "Vera of the Quillians," Helen said formally, "on behalf of humanity, I thank you for your warning. You could have died alone in space, your mission failed. But Captain Morrison and his crew saved you, and you have honored that rescue by sharing everything you know with us." "It was my purpose," Vera replied, "though I confess I did not expect to find such kindness in a species so young." "We have a choice to make," Helen continued, addressing the council now. "Do we fight or do we flee? Do we spend the next 30 years preparing for war against an unbeatable enemy? Or do we use that time to evacuate as many people as possible to another galaxy?" The debate that followed would last for days. But Jake knew, watching Vera stand alone in the center of that chamber, that humanity had already made a choice the moment they decided to answer her distress call. They had chosen to care about someone other than themselves. That choice would define everything that came after. The debate lasted 3 days. Jake watched from the gallery as the most powerful people on Earth argued about humanity's future. Some wanted to build weapons, to fortify Earth and prepare for war. Others insisted that evacuation was the only rational choice. A few, mostly religious leaders, argued that the Devourers might be reasoned with, that no intelligence could be truly beyond redemption. Vera listened to it all with patience that Jake found amazing. When council members asked her questions, sometimes hostile ones, she answered calmly. When they demanded proof, she provided data from her ship's computers. When they accused her of lying or exaggerating, she simply showed them more recordings of Quillian worlds being consumed. On the evening of the second day, Jake found Vera, standing alone on an observation deck looking down at Earth. The planet turned slowly beneath them, blue and green and beautiful. What do you think of our world? Jake asked. It is lovely, Vera said, so full of life and potential. It reminds me of Quilia before the Devourers came. We had oceans like yours, forests and mountains and cities that gleamed in the sunlight. I'm sorry you lost it. Vera's shimmer rippled with sad colors. I am sorry too. But perhaps your people will learn from our mistakes. What mistakes did you make? We waited too long to act, Vera said. When we first encountered the Devourers, we thought we could handle them easily. We were ancient and wise and powerful. How could mere machines threaten us? By the time we understood the truth, it was too late to save everyone. Jake watched the earth turn. Some of the council members want to keep your warning secret. They think it would cause panic if people knew what was coming. Would it? Vera asked. Probably, Jake admitted. But I think people have a right to know. They deserve the truth, even if it's terrifying. Your Admiral Hughes said something similar. She argued that humanity cannot make an informed choice without all the information. Hughes is smart, Jake said. What do you think we should do, fight or flee? Vera was quiet for a long moment. I have been asking myself that question since you rescued me. The logical answer is to flee. The Devourers cannot be defeated. Every species that has tried has failed. The Quillians were not the first. We found evidence of civilizations that came before us, equally advanced, equally destroyed. But, Jake prompted, but I look at your species, and I see something the Quillians lost long ago. You are young and foolish and brave. You answer distress calls from strangers. You risk your lives to save people you have never met. You have not learned to be careful yet. You think that matters? I think it might, Vera said. The Quillians spent our final years trying to preserve ourselves. We built defenses, we retreated to fortified systems, we focused on survival. But you humans, you think about saving others. It is a different mindset entirely. On the third day, the council reached a decision. Or rather, they reached a compromise that satisfied no one completely but that everyone could live with. President Helen Grant announced it to the world in a broadcast that would be remembered for generations. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, Helen began, her face grave but determined. 3 days ago, we learned that we are not alone in the universe. We also learned that we face an existential threat unlike any in human history. I will not lie to you or sugarcoat the truth. An intelligence called the Devourers is coming, and they have destroyed civilizations far older and more advanced than ours. The world listened in shocked silence as Helen explained everything. She told them about Vera, about the Quillians, about the recordings of worlds being consumed. She gave them the truth that some had wanted to hide. We estimate we have 30 years before the Devourers reach Earth, Helen continued. 30 years to make a choice about our future. And this council has decided that we will not choose just one path. We will choose both. On screens across Earth and every human colony, displays showed the plan. It was ambitious, maybe impossible, but it was a plan. We will build defenses, Helen said. Using Quillian technology as a foundation, we will create weapons and shields to slow the Devourers' advance. We know we cannot stop them, but we can buy time. Simultaneously, we will build evacuation ships, vessels capable of carrying millions of people across the void between galaxies. Not everyone will be able to go, at least not at first, but we will save as many as we can. And finally, we will reach out to other species. Vera came to warn us about the Devourers. There must be other young civilizations out there, other species who do not yet know the danger they face. We will warn them, just as Vera warned us. We will offer them the same choice we are making. Stand together or fall separately. Helen paused, letting her words sink in. This will require sacrifice. Every nation, every colony, every person will need to contribute. We will need to set aside our differences and work together as one species. I know that seems impossible. We have never achieved that level of unity before, but the alternative is extinction. 30 years, Helen said. That is all the time we have. Let us not waste a single day. The broadcast ended, and the world erupted. Some in panic, some in determination, some in denial. But slowly, like a ship turning in the ocean, humanity began to change course. Jake was assigned to command one of the first missions under the new plan. The Pathfinder Initiative, they called it. Ships would be sent out to find and warn other species, to offer them the Quillian technology and knowledge, to build an alliance against the Devourers. "You are going back out there," Vera said when Jake told her. They were in the laboratory where Vera had been working with Earth's scientists, helping them understand Quillian technology. "Someone has to warn the others," Jake said. "And I have experience with first contact now. You saved my life. Now you want to save entire civilizations you have never met. Isn't that what you were doing? When the Devourers attacked your scout ship?" Vera's shimmer brightened with warm colors. "Yes, I suppose it is." "Come with us," Jake said suddenly. "The Pathfinder Initiative needs someone who understands alien cultures, who knows the galaxy. You would be invaluable." "You want me to leave Earth, when you have only just brought me here?" "I want you to finish your mission," Jake said. "You set out to warn young species about the Devourers. We found one species, but there are more out there. Help us find them." Vera looked at the humans working around her, at the scientists studying her people's technology with such enthusiasm, at the engineers building prototypes of Quillian devices. In just 3 weeks, they had made progress that should have taken years. "Very well," Vera said. "I will come, but not just as a guide or translator. I want to help you build your alliance. I want to see if humanity's approach, this foolish bravery of yours, can achieve what Quillian wisdom could not." Over the next 6 months, Earth transformed. Factories that had built cars and computers were retooled to build weapons and shield generators. Research labs studied Quillian technology day and night. Shipyards expanded to construct the massive evacuation vessels. And the Pathfinder ships prepared to launch. Jake's ship was called the Unity. It was smaller than the Horizon Dawn, but faster, equipped with improved engines based on Quillian designs. The crew of 20 included Amy, who had been promoted to Chief Technology Officer, and Linda, whose communication skills would be crucial for making contact with aliens. Vera had her own quarters on the Unity, designed to accommodate her physiology. She spent the weeks before launch working with the crew, teaching them about the species the Quillians had encountered during their long history. The Kasari, who lived in the oceans of their world. The Thornback clans, warriors who valued honor above all else. The Lumini, beings of pure energy who danced in the atmospheres of gas giants. On the day of launch, Jake stood on the bridge of the Unity and looked back at Earth. From orbit, it was just a blue marble against the black. But it was home, and it was worth fighting for. "All systems ready, Captain," Amy reported from the engineering station. "Course plotted to the Kasari system," Linda added. 6 weeks at maximum speed." Jake looked at Vera, who stood at a specially designed station. "Ready to finish your mission?" "Ready to start a new one," Vera corrected. "My mission was to warn one species. Your mission is to save them all." "Then let's get started." Jake sat in the captain's chair. "Take us out." The Unity's engines flared to life, and the ship accelerated away from Earth. Behind them, 5 more Pathfinder ships launched, each heading to a different part of the galaxy. Ahead of them lay the unknown, dangers they could barely imagine, and species they had never met. But also ahead of them lay hope. The hope that one species saving one alien could grow into an alliance of civilizations. The hope that humanity's stubborn refusal to give up could inspire others. The hope that even against an unbeatable enemy, standing together meant something. Jake thought about the moment they had found Vera's ship, drifting and dying in the void. Such a small thing, answering one distress call, but from that small act of kindness everything else had followed. Maybe that was the real lesson. Maybe changing the galaxy didn't require grand gestures or ancient wisdom. Maybe it just required caring enough to help, one person at a time, one ship at a time, one civilization at a time. "You know," Jake said to Vera, "when we left Earth 3 months ago, we were just looking for asteroids to mine. 20 years passed like a river flowing toward an ocean. 20 years of humanity racing against time, reaching out across the galaxy while building defenses at home. 20 years that transformed not just Earth, but the entire local galactic cluster. The Unity and its sister ships had found 37 different species in those 2 decades. Some were primitive, barely reaching their own moons. Others were more advanced, exploring their local star systems. A few were ancient, though none as old as the Quillians had been. Not all of them believed the warning. The Karathi, proud insectoid beings who controlled 12 systems, laughed at the idea of machines that could threaten them. They sent the Unity away with contempt. 3 years later, the Devourers reached Karathi space. The proud empire lasted 6 months before being completely consumed, but others listened. The Kessari had been the first. They were aquatic beings, living in vast underwater cities on their ocean world. When Vera showed them recordings of the Devourers, their color patterns had shifted to terror. Within weeks, they had committed their entire civilization to the Alliance. The Thornbacks came next. They were warriors standing 8 feet tall with natural armor plates covering their bodies. They had been on the verge of civil war when the Unity arrived. Jake had expected them to reject the warning, to continue their internal conflicts. But the Thornback chieftain, a scarred veteran named Krell, had surprised him. "We fight each other because we have no greater enemy," Krell had said, his voice like grinding stone. "Give us a worthy foe and the clans will unite." The Lumini were harder to convince. They were beings of energy and thought, living in the upper atmosphere of a gas giant. They did not understand physical threat the way solid beings did, but they understood loss and they understood extinction. An ancient Lumini elder named Brightness Between Storms had pledged their people to the Alliance. Each species brought something unique. The Kessari had mastery over biological technology, growing ships and weapons from engineered organisms. The Thornbacks brought tactical brilliance and a warrior culture that valued honor and courage. The Lumini could manipulate energy in ways that seemed like magic, creating shields and weapons of pure light. And humanity brought the one thing that held it all together. Hope, Jake Morrison, now an admiral commanding a fleet of human and alien ships, stood in the command center of the Alliance headquarters. It was built in neutral space, a massive station constructed with technology from a dozen different species. The room was designed to accommodate all types of life, with sections of water for the Kessari, high-pressure zones for species that needed them, and open spaces for those who flew. "Status report," Jake said, looking at the holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Amy Wells, now the Alliance's chief of technology, highlighted sections of the map. "The Devourers have finished consuming what remained of Quillian space. They're expanding on 3 fronts. Based on their current trajectory, they'll reach the Kessari homeworld in 18 months. Earth in about 10 years, 10 years left, not 30 like they had hoped." The Devourers were moving faster than predicted. "What about the evacuation effort?" Jake asked. "The Exodus gates are operational," Amy replied. The gates were massive portals, each one the size of a small moon, capable of opening pathways to other galaxies. They were built using Quillian technology enhanced by contributions from every Alliance species. "We've already relocated 4 million Kessari to the Andromeda Galaxy. The second wave of evacuations begins next month." "Only 4 million?" Jake said quietly. "There are over 3 billion Kessari." "We're doing everything we can," Amy said. "But building the gates takes time and moving entire populations across intergalactic space isn't simple. We'll save as many as possible, but not everyone." It was the hardest truth of their situation. Even with 20 years of preparation, even with an alliance of species working together, they couldn't save everyone. Choices would have to be made about who went first, who would stay to buy time, who would man the defenses while others fled to safety. Vera entered the command center, moving with the same grace she had shown 20 years ago. She hadn't aged the way humans did. Quillians lived for centuries, and Vera was still in what her people would have considered young adulthood. "The defensive fleet is ready," Vera reported. "We have ships from 8 different species all equipped with the latest adaptations to our weapons and shields." "Will it be enough?" Jake asked. Vera's shimmer rippled with uncertain colors. "To stop the Devourers? No, but to slow them, to buy time for more evacuations, perhaps." The defensive strategy was based on a simple principle. The Devourers adapted to every weapon and tactic they encountered. But there was a lag time before they fully countered new approaches. If the Alliance kept changing their methods, kept innovating, they could delay the inevitable. But delay was all they could achieve. Every simulation, every analysis, every bit of data they had collected over 20 years pointed to the same conclusion. The Devourers could not be defeated. Not by the Alliance, not by anyone. There's something else, Vera said. We've detected signals from 3 more species in the path of the Devourers. All of them pre-space flight, still confined to their home planets. Can we reach them in time? Jake asked. If we send ships immediately, yes. But those ships won't be available for the defense or evacuation. It was always a balance. Every ship sent to warn new species was a ship that couldn't help defend the ones already in the Alliance. Every resource spent on building Exodus gates was a resource not spent on weapons. Every scientist working on evacuation technology was a scientist not improving their defenses. Jake made the decision that defined him and, by extension, defined humanity's role in the Alliance. Send the ships, he said. Warn them. Give them the choice. We might need those ships when the Devourers arrive, Amy pointed out. And those 3 species will definitely die if we don't warn them, Jake replied. That's not a choice I'm willing to make. It was the same choice he had made 20 years ago when he had ordered the Horizon Dawn to answer Vera's distress call. Save the life in front of you, even if it costs you later. It wasn't logical, wasn't strategic, but it was human. And it was that quality that made the other species trust humanity to lead the Alliance. The Thornback chieftain Krell had once asked Jake why humans cared so much about saving strangers. Because someone saved us once, Jake had replied, looking at Vera. And we learned that's the kind of universe we want to live in. As the months passed, the defensive fleets assembled. Thousands of ships representing dozens of species, all preparing for a battle they knew they couldn't win. The goal wasn't victory. It was time. The first encounter with the Devourers came at the edge of Kessari space. A fleet of Devourer ships, each one a perfect black sphere covered in strange geometric patterns, emerged from the void. They didn't communicate, didn't make demands, didn't even acknowledge the Alliance fleet that waited for them. They simply began the conversion process. The battle lasted 3 days. Alliance ships used every weapon and tactic they had developed. Kessari bioships released swarms of explosive organisms. Thornback heavy cruisers pounded the Devourers with kinetic weapons. Luminae energy beings channeled raw power through focusing arrays. And human ships coordinated it all, their tactical flexibility allowing the Alliance to adapt faster than any single species could. The Devourers lost 11 ships. The Alliance lost 43, but they had bought time. Enough time to evacuate another 2 million Kessari through the Exodus gates. Enough time to fortify the next defensive position. Enough time to keep fighting. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. The Alliance would establish a defensive line, fight until it was no longer sustainable, evacuate as many people as they could, then fall back to the next position. Each battle they learned a little more about the Devourers. Each battle they refined their tactics, and each battle they saved a few more lives. Jake stood on the observation deck of the Alliance headquarters and watched the evacuation ships pass by. Endless streams of vessels heading toward the Exodus gates, carrying families and children in the hope of survival to distant galaxies. Vera joined him, as she often did in quiet moments. In all the years the Quillians fought the Devourers, we saved perhaps 10% of our population, Vera said. The rest were consumed, but the Alliance has already evacuated 20% of the threatened populations, and the number grows every day. It's not enough, Jake said. There are still billions who won't make it. No, Vera agreed. But it is more than would have survived if you had not answered my distress call. Jake thought about that moment 20 years ago. The Horizon Dawn detecting a faint signal, making the choice to investigate instead of waiting for authorization, finding a dying alien and deciding to help. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't found you? Jake asked. Every day, Vera said. The Quillians would have died as a failed warning. Humanity would have been caught unprepared when the Devourers arrived. The Kessari, the Thornbacks, the Luminae, all the others we have saved, they would have fallen alone, never knowing they could have stood together. But we did find you, Jake said. Yes, one human ship saved one alien ship, and from that small act of kindness, everything else followed.